The Bloodstained Cell. Before we dive in, don't forget to subscribe, hit that like button, and turn on notifications because what you're about to hear isn't a movie. It's real, and San Quentin doesn't want you to know it. The story begins at 3:27 a.m. when Officer Raymond Holt, an 18-year veteran of San Quentin State Prison, pressed his hand against a cold steel door in the East Block. On the other side, a man was screaming. It wasn't unusual. Screaming was part of the soundtrack of San Quentin. But this was different. The voice was desperate, gurgling, as if drowning in air. By the time Holt and his partner forced the door open, cell 42 was silent. The inmate inside, Luis Ortega, was sprawled on the floor, his eyes wide open, mouth frozen mid-scream. No blood, no weapon. But something about his body, stiff, unnatural, told Holt this wasn't suicide. When medical staff arrived, the air smelled like bleach and metal. Ortega's cellmate, a quiet lifer named Reggie Miles, sat motionless on the bunk. He did it to himself, Reggie muttered, not meeting anyone's eyes. But the bruises around Ortega's neck said otherwise. Within hours, prison investigators sealed off East Block. Rumors spread fast. Ortega wasn't just any inmate. He was the only surviving witness of a 2019 prison riot that allegedly involved several guards. He'd been scheduled to testify in a state hearing the following week. Detective Maria Keller from Marin County Sheriff's Office was assigned to investigate. She dealt with gang killings, cartel bodies, and unsolved disappearances, but San Quentin was a different kind of battlefield. Every face was a mask, every word a coded threat. When she arrived, the guards didn't welcome her. They watched her. Tight lips, sideways glances. She noticed something no one wanted to talk about Ortega. Not the inmates, not the staff. He wasn't popular, a sergeant finally said. He made enemies. But when Keller checked Ortega's visitor logs, something stood out. A name that didn't belong there. T marks. The signature was neat, deliberate, but there was no record of a visitor by that name. The security footage from that day was mysteriously corrupted. The visitor camera, one of the only working ones in that block, had gone black at 2:19 p.m. That same night, Keller's car alarm went off in the prison parking lot. When she approached, there was nothing but a faint smear of blood on the driver's side mirror. She ordered her team to pull all internal communication records. Half of them were missing. Inside the prison, tension thickened. Inmates whispered about the deal. Supposedly, Ortega had been part of a contraband network involving guards. Phones, narcotics, even weapons were being smuggled in. Some said Ortega had threatened to go public. Others claimed he'd already spoken to someone outside. Then, during a cell search, Keller's team found something that chilled everyone. A torn scrap of paper hidden behind a brick near Ortega's bunk. It read, "They promise protection." Instead, they opened the door. No signature. No fingerprints. By the third day, a second inmate was found dead, Reggie Miles, Ortega's cellmate. His death was ruled suicide. But Keller wasn't buying it. His wrist wounds were deep, but the blade was clean, no blood. Someone had staged it. Then came the discovery that changed everything. In the security archives, a technician uncovered a corrupted video file labeled East 42_log_02.14. The footage was grainy, almost useless, but as the static cleared for a brief second, a figure appeared in the hallway outside Ortega's cell. The man wore a guard's uniform, but his badge number was blacked out with tape. Keller froze the frame. On the man's wrist, barely visible under the flicker of light, was a silver ring with a black stone. Only a few guards in San Quentin wore those. One of them was Lieutenant Raymond Holt, the same man who discovered Ortega's body. That night, Keller confronted Holt in the security office. His calmness unnerved her. "Detective," he said, voice low, "you don't understand this place. People disappear here without ever leaving. You want to find the truth? You'd better ask the ones who built the walls." Before she could respond, a call came through her radio. "Detective Keller, you need to come to the records wing. Now." When she arrived, the lights were flickering, papers scattered everywhere. The inmate registry files were gone, shredded, burned, erased. Only one page remained intact. A transfer form. Luis Ortega. Date of death. Pending verification. Status. Relocated to maximum security. But Ortega was dead. Keller had seen his body herself. The realization hit her like ice. Someone inside San Quentin had rewritten history. And as she looked around that silent, blue-lit corridor, she understood the terrifying truth. Whatever killed Ortega wasn't finished yet. Because stamped at the bottom of the page was a name she hadn't seen before. Warden T. Marks. The man behind the walls. The morning after the files vanished, San Quentin looked different. The fog rolling off the bay felt heavier, like the air itself was keeping secrets. Detective Maria Keller hadn't slept. Her mind kept circling back to the name T. Marks, the same one that appeared in Ortega's visitor log and at the bottom of that transfer form. But here was the problem. According to official state records, there had never been a Warden T. Marks at San Quentin. Not in any year. Not under any alias. Keller drove to the administrative wing, where sunlight rarely reached. The walls were lined with black and white photos of former wardens, men with hard eyes and stiffer collars. But there was a gap, an empty frame between 1998 and 2000. No name, no image, just a plaque that read, "Data unavailable." She called the Department of Corrections office in Sacramento. The line went quiet when she asked about it. "Detective Keller," the voice said after a long pause, "that period is classified. You're not cleared to access it." "Classified," she repeated. "This isn't the military base. It's a prison." The line went dead. That night, Keller returned to her hotel room, overlooking the bay. On her table lay a sealed envelope with no return address. Inside was a single photograph, a group of guards posing in the San Quentin courtyard, dated 1999. In the center stood a tall man in a dark uniform, face half-turned, wearing a silver ring with a black stone. Scrawled on the back, "He never left." Keller felt her pulse quicken. Whoever this man was, he was haunting the prison from the shadows. The next morning, she went back inside. Inmates were restless. Whispers of Ortega's ghost and the return of Marks spread like wildfire. In cell block D, graffiti had appeared overnight. "The warden watches." She questioned Officer Holt again. His usual confidence was gone. He looked pale, anxious. "Detective," he said quietly, "there are things here you shouldn't stir up. Ortega wasn't the first to talk, you know. And he won't be the last to disappear." "Disappear?" Keller shot back. "What do you mean?" But Holt only shook his head. "Sometimes, people just get transferred. That's what they tell us. Then a week later, their names vanish from the system." Keller pressed harder, pulling decades of disciplinary reports, medical files, and transport logs. The deeper she went, the more patterns emerged. Each case, a whistleblower inmate, a staff member filing misconduct, a guard threatening to expose contraband, all transferred or relocated. Every single one under the signature of T. Marks. But it wasn't just the records. Inmate interviews hinted at something worse. They spoke of a hidden section deep beneath the prison, the lower tier, where problem inmates were sent but never returned. Some swore they heard screams from the old isolation cells at night. Others said the walls down there were painted over, to hide blood that never washed away. On the fourth day, Keller convinced the maintenance chief, Hank Dorsey, to take her below the main blocks. They passed through a rusted metal door marked "Authorized Personnel Only." The hallway smelled like damp concrete and decay. A single flickering light buzzed overhead. "Back in the day," Hank whispered, "this level was closed off. Said it was unstable. But rumor is, they kept using it long after." "For what?" Keller asked. "Punishment. Off-the-books interrogations." "You didn't hear it from me." They reached the end of the hall, a door sealed with chains. Keller noticed scratches near the lock, as if someone had tried to claw their way out. When she pried it open, her flashlight beam fell on something that froze her in place. The room was empty, except for a metal chair bolted to the floor, restraint still attached, and dried stains on the ground. On the far wall, someone had written in red, "T. Marks lives." Dorsey muttered, "We should go." Keller snapped a photo and turned to leave, but then she noticed something wedged in a crack of the floor, a prison ID badge, corroded with age. She wiped the grime away and squinted at the faded text. Name: Raymond Holt. Status: deceased, 1999. Her stomach dropped. Holt, the same officer who'd been helping her, had a death record dated 26 years ago. When she returned topside, Holt was gone. His locker was empty. His badge, weapon, and uniform, all missing. No one claimed to have seen him leave. That night, Keller sat alone in her car in the prison parking lot, rain pounding against the windshield. She opened her laptop, replaying the grainy footage of Ortega's hallway again and again. Then she paused, zoomed in. The man outside Ortega's cell turned slightly toward the camera. His face came into view, pale under the fluorescent light. And though the image was fuzzy, Keller saw it clearly. The jawline, the eyes, the same faint scar above the left brow. It was Holt, but the timestamp in the corner read February 16th, 1999. A chill ran through her as the power in her car flickered, the engine stuttering for a moment before dying completely. She glanced up through the fog. She could just make out a figure standing at the prison gate, unmoving, watching. She tried to call dispatch, but her phone showed no signal. When lightning flashed across the bay, the figure was gone. Only then did she notice the paper tucked under her windshield wiper. She unfolded it slowly. A single line, typed in block letters. The warden decides who stays and who leaves. And scribbled underneath in pen, the same handwriting from Ortega's note. You're next, Keller. The warden's last order. By dawn, San Quentin was locked down. The prison sirens cut through the mist, echoing off the bay like a war cry. Detective Maria Keller sat in her car, drenched in rain, staring at the note again. You're next, Keller. She wasn't the type to scare easily. But this wasn't a normal threat. It was calculated, personal. Someone or something inside those walls didn't want her digging any deeper. Keller stepped out into the fog, her breath visible in the cold air. The guards at the gate looked uneasy, their eyes darting around like they were waiting for something to happen. One of them, a rookie named Dawson, leaned close and whispered, "Ma'am, it's happening again. We've lost 2 more. Lost?" she asked sharply. "They were in solitary last night. Now their cells are empty. No signs of escape. No alarms. Just gone." Keller walked inside, boots echoing on the wet concrete floor. Every corridor felt colder, the air thick with something unspoken. Fear. She went to the control room. Monitors flickered, showing live feeds from every block. Then one screen went dark. Then another. And another. One by one, entire sections of the prison vanished from view until only a single camera was left, trained on the isolation tier deep underground. There, in the dim blue light, stood a figure. Motionless, staring straight at the lens. Keller leaned closer. "Freeze that," she ordered. The operator hit pause. The image pixelated, but she could still make out the shape. Tall, uniformed, and wearing a warden's badge. The nameplate below it read T. Marks. The operator turned pale. "Ma'am, that can't be. This feed's not live." "What do you mean?" "It's from the archive. Dated April 12th, 1999. Keller's stomach twisted. The same week Ortega was transferred. She ordered a sweep of the isolation wing, but most guards refused. "That place ain't safe," Dawson muttered. "Everyone who goes down there comes back different, if they come back at all." But Keller didn't wait. She grabbed her flashlight and descended alone. The stairwell was silent except for dripping water and her footsteps. As she reached the lower corridor, her radio crackled, faint, distant static. Then a whisper. "Detective Keller, leave now." She froze. It was Holt's voice. The same tone. The same slight rasp. "Holt," she called out. "Where are you?" No response. Just the hum of fluorescent lights above, flickering like they were struggling to stay alive. At the end of the hallway, the same chained door stood half open. Keller pushed it aside and stepped into the chamber, the one with the bolted chair. But now, the stains were gone. The walls had been scrubbed clean. Everything was immaculate. On the chair lay a small metal cassette recorder, the kind used decades ago for inmate interviews. She pressed play. A man's voice filled the room.
Calm. Deep.
Controlled. Inmate 4231, Raymond Holt. Confession, dated April 9, 1999. Statement made under supervision of Warden T. Marks. Keller's heart pounded. Holt, the same man who'd supposedly died that year. The tape continued. Warden Marks ordered us to silence Ortega. Said he was planning to expose something about the isolation wing. He said the prison had a purpose, to reform in ways the state would never understand. Anyone who talked was corrected. The recording crackled. Then another voice joined, smooth, authoritarian. That's enough, Officer Holt. You know the rules. No one leaves this place until their debt is paid. There was a scuffle, a thud, and then silence. Keller replayed it, hands trembling. That second voice, it was unmistakable.
Cold.
Commanding. And still alive, somehow, in every echo of that place. A shadow moved behind her. She spun around. A man stood in the doorway, tall, uniform pressed, cap low over his eyes. His face was pale, almost colorless, like someone drained of blood. His badge caught the dim light. Warden T. Marks. You shouldn't be here, Detective, he said, voice eerily calm. Some walls are built to keep things in. Keller raised her weapon. You're not real. You died in 1999. He smiled faintly. Did I? Or did I simply stay where I belonged? He took a step closer. The room seemed to darken around him. I made San Quentin what it is. The state built prisons for punishment. I built one for control. Those who crossed me learned the difference. Keller's hand shook. What did you do to them? They wanted freedom, he said softly. I gave them eternity. The lights flickered violently, and for a split second, his face changed, flickering like an old videotape between flesh and static, between man and memory. Then, the lights went out. When they came back on, the room was empty. The chair, the tape recorder, even the chains, all gone. Only the faint smell of ozone lingered. Keller stumbled back toward the main hall, breathing hard. Her radio burst alive with frantic chatter. Detective Keller, we're reading motion in your sector, but the cameras aren't picking you up. She looked around. The walls shimmered faintly, like heat waves. Her reflection in a cracked mirror nearby didn't move when she did. And in that moment, Keller realized she hadn't left the isolation wing at all. Hours later, the warden's office received a final transmission. Static, then her voice, faint and distant. He's still here. Don't let him. Then nothing. A week later, the Department of Corrections listed Detective Maria Keller as missing in action. Official reports said she left the prison during a storm and never returned. But inside San Quentin, inmates whispered something else, that a new figure now walked the lower tiers at night, flashlight in hand, checking cells that had been empty for years. When the guards passed that corridor, they swore they could hear her voice faintly through the static of the surveillance feed. The warden decides who stays and who leaves. And on the monitor in the control room, in that same blue-tinted feed, two figures stood side by side in the dark. Warden Marks, Detective Keller, watching.